Good evening. I'd like to call to order the special meeting of the City Council of the City of Lakewood, Colorado on October 30th, 2017 at 7 p.m. in council chambers. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Hall.
Here.
Coop.
Here.
Wickman. Gutwein.
Here.
Franks. Harrison.
Here.
Royball.
Here.
Vincent.
Here.
Abel.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Shakti.
Here.
You have a quorum.
All right. Well, I'd like to welcome everybody in chambers tonight and also those who may be tuning in at home. Council member Franks is not feeling well, so she won't be with us. We send her our best. I'd ask that if you do have a cell phone, please put it on silent and no Bronco updates unless they're good updates. Next up, we have the Pledge of Allegiance, and we have some special guests here who are going to come up and lead us in the pledge. So if you'd rise and stay standing for a moment of silent prayer.
Join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Go Wildcats.
Thank you. Please be seated. I think you gentlemen were going to come back up and introduce yourselves, right? Uh-huh. Tell us your name and where you're from.
I'm Finnegan and I'm from Evergreen, Colorado.
I'm Jack and I'm from Evergreen, Colorado.
I'm Lucas and I'm from Evergreen, Colorado.
I am Stephen and I am also from Evergreen, Colorado.
Fantastic. Well, we thank you all for coming out tonight. Item 4.
Item 4, proclamation, National Hunger and Homelessness Awareness Week.
All right. Proclamation, Hunger and Homelessness Awareness Week, November 11th through the 19th, 2017. Whereas the City of Lakewood is committed to ensuring every member of our community is able to achieve their full potential, because our well-being as individuals and as a community is built over time by a team of people. And whereas National Hunger and Homelessness Awareness Week is held each year the week before Thanksgiving, serving an important reminder that for many children, families, seniors, veterans, and others in the city of Lakewood, a lack of food or a safe, stable place to call home are preventing them from reaching their full potential. And whereas the city of Lakewood recognizes that if we work together, hunger and homelessness are solvable, and whereas in partnership with many organizations such as the Action Center and Hunger Free Colorado are committed to building well-being by connecting residents to available services, implementing public policy initiatives, and encouraging all Coloradans to speak up and lend a hand so that Lakewood can be a city where everyone has a safe place to call home and enough food to eat. Now, therefore, on behalf of the City Council and the people of the City of Lakewood, I, Adam Paul, Mayor of the City of Lakewood, Colorado, do hereby proclaim November 11th through the 19th, 2017 as Hunger and Homeless Awareness Week. So we don't have anybody to accept that, but as you know, there's plenty of outreach opportunities within our community, whether Family Tree, Action Center, faith-based, to participate, so we'd encourage folks to participate. And I think we'll also be accepting socks here at City Hall. If you'd like to buy a package of socks, you can drop those off and we'll make sure that those get distributed. So thank you. All sizes, yep. Male, female, children, all the above. Okay, so next up is public comment. And this is the point in the meeting where the public is invited to address the City Council on items that did not appear on the agenda. So as you can tell, we have a lot of agenda items, and all of those will have their own public comment sections. I ask that all in attendance observe the decorum of City Council chambers and refrain from applause or audible support or discord with the speaker. This little box here will be green for 2.5 minutes, then it'll go yellow, and when your time is up, it'll go red, and we'll politely try to wrap you up. So first up, we have Ms. Judy Hardy. Good evening.
My name is Judy Hardy, and I'm a resident of Ward 3. I would like to take this opportunity to formally thank Councillor Shakti for her service on behalf of Ward 3 residents and the City of Lakewood. I have been regularly attending Ward 3 meetings for the past 2 years, and during that time I have observed the thoughtful, fact-based approach Councillor Shakti has demonstrated in studying and learning about issues, in seeking input from community members, and in searching for positive solutions and options to address those issues. I have appreciated the respectful manner Councillor Shakti has demonstrated in her interactions with her constituents, fellow council members, city staff, and those addressing council. Councillor Shakti has worked tirelessly to make a difference for Lakewood residents, particularly her support of seniors and youth and nonprofit organizations supporting those in our community. I am thankful for Councillor Shakti's support of Lakewood's sustainability plan and of her efforts to learn more about the ways the city and its citizens can support our natural environment. I have appreciated her updates on clean water efforts affecting the Bear Creek waterway and her participation as a Lakewood representative working with Dr. Cog on air quality and transportation issues and regional ways to make improvements in these areas. In closing, Councillor Shakti, your positive support and inclusive ways will be missed, and thank you again for your service.
Great, thank you. David Vataha, is that correct? Did I say that right? Did I miss a letter?
You got it. Very close.
Great, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is David Votava. I live over at the Westford Condominiums at 9195 West Cedar Drive. I'm here tonight to ask for your assistance between Alameda and Colfax on Garrison Street. I have lived at Westford Condos for approximately 11 years, and I'm just horrified by the amount of traffic that has now come, down through the Garrison Street area. It seems to be a major thoroughfare now, and that section of Garrison has only 2 lanes. It's become necessary over the years on 8th Avenue to put in a flashing light in order for the kids to be able to cross the street. Now over at our area, which is Cedar Drive and Garrison, no one can get out basically between 3 and 6 o'clock in the evening. I have asked, and I've gone to Ramey and Charlie through various things regarding bike lanes, trying to get a flashing light signal, and every time I've met with Jay saying, no, we don't have money, we can't do that. We can't do the bike lane because we have to do something in front of Mile High, but yet you have a piece of land that is adjacent to our property that's owned by the city, and there's no plan or reason that a bike lane is going to be started or completed at this point. With no middle lane on Garrison, we have the issue with people trying to make left turns into their driveways and in the side streets. And what's troubled me is day after day, because I'm on that street at about 3:30, is the number of vehicles passing in the bike lanes. I've seen numerous times where children almost got hit because not only are people with bikes in those lanes, the kids are walking in those lanes. I very seldom see police patrol, and I'm asking that council tries to talk to the police department to get increased patrols between the hours of 3 and 6 p.m. I've talked to the police department. They say, yeah, and nothing happens. It's getting to be pretty serious. I also asked for a flashing light signal as it is at 8th Avenue to be able to cross the street. I presented it, Ramey forwarded it on to Public Works, and within 2 days I got a no. Basically, they have to do a study to count the number of people that cross the street. So we've got 2 people in our community that are legally blind that try to cross the street. The majority of our population in Westford is over 50. They try to get across the street to Village Roaster. They try to get to the little shops. They can't because you've got constant traffic coming off of Alameda going northbound in that turn lane, and then you've got the constant flow of traffic, which is not traveling at 30 miles an hour. It's traveling somewhere between 35 and I've seen it as high as 50. I just wish we could do something. We talk about growth and everything, but the city isn't keeping up with the infrastructure. You can't keep growing and growing and growing and expect all this traffic to go through a narrow area. One other thing I'd like to ask too is if we can't put in a flashing light at that intersection. In New York City, they have boxes because, and there are all these different lines. That street is constantly during rush hour. The intersection is blocked and no one can get through. You can't get right, left, straight across the street. So just asking for council's help on anything that you can do. Appreciate it. Thank you and good evening.
Yep, thank you. Thanks for coming out. Mr. Little? Good evening.
Hi, my name is Little. I'm here tonight to, first of all, thank 4 people that are going to be leaving City Council, and 4 that who knows if they're going to be leaving City Council. That's determined by the vote here in a couple of weeks. But I just want to say and show my appreciation to all of you. You've worked hard, and you've worked for the city. A special thanks goes out to my ward, Ward 4, is Dave Wickman. He spent the last 8 years of his life really putting in a lot of effort for the city of Lakewood. Ward 4 is not the easiest place to live. It's usually where the hot topics, and as Mayor Paul knows, when he was city councilor up there, it's a tough neighborhood sometimes. I've always come here and spoke my piece. So tonight I just wanted to speak about Dave. When I first met Dave, I didn't know what to say about him, and I, for 15 minutes, ran against him in city council. I thought it would be great to be a city councilor. And boy, after watching 8 years of what he's gone through, there was no way I'd sit up there. So I do appreciate all the work he's done. Just for a few things, he spent a lot of time in Ward 4 working diligently and always for the citizens of Lakewood. He spent a lot of his own time, a lot of his own money on projects within the city and Ward 4, especially the baseball park up by Foothills. And there was a lot of things that he went through on this council. Hope that doesn't happen to anyone in the future. But I just wanted to thank him for everything he's done. He's become also a friend of mine, like a lot of you on the council. Some of you were not so friendly, but remember, I've always spoke my piece, and he has too, and I hope after this is all over with, he comes to council and speaks his piece continually. Thank you, Dave, for everything you've done.
Thank you. Ms. Hasfjord?
We travel together. I'm Kathy Hasfjord from Two Creeks, and I'm here to say thank you, Scott, for the 8 years of wonderful service that you have given us. You have supported us in Ward 2, and especially in Two Creeks, as well as WCCA. So thank you, and we hope that you never have to go through another meeting on a budget. But we also want to thank you because it has been 16 years of having a Coop on this board. And so to the whole Coop family, thank you very much. And Shotke, thank you very much for the service that you have done. And I hope that you have a good time as what you pursue after this. Thank you.
I'm going to ditto that. And I want to thank Scott and for being almost at every one of our Two Creeks meeting and at the Ward 2 meetings, and I think you have served Ward 2 very well, and we will miss you desperately. So, I really, it's impossible to say how much time and energy has been spent by the Coops in the last 16 years. So thanks very much, and I'm standing on my toes to do this.
It is adjustable. Thank you. All right, Stephen, I can't quite make out the last name. I have a comment on the agenda. Okay. Just when I open public comment on whichever one, let me know. Okay. Mr. Vanderveen? Good evening.
Dave Vanderveer, Ward 5. I just wanted to come and echo my thanks to the city staff and the city council. To me, this is a really exciting agenda, and that's why I drove out here tonight. Just so many great things that are going on, and I just really appreciate that the city is listening to its residents. I know there's a lot of controversy about that right now, and really the hot topic lately has been development and how that affects the city. And one of the items I see on the agenda is talking about the Taylor property. And it's great to hear that, you know, there's a 122-acre parcel that can be open space and for the public. And it basically listened to everyone's comments at the same time. It's beautiful and I love it. So I wanted to thank especially Kathy. I know she's behind me. Especially shout out to Kathy behind me, because I know that is a huge project, and really it's a top-down approach. So thank you for that, and thank you to Shakti and Councilor Coop for your service. I have a fun story. 2 years ago when I moved into Lakewood, Shakti knocked on my door and asked me about kind of what I was interested in, what my concerns were for the city and whatnot. And you would have thought I traded councilman cards for a living because I was so excited. It was like a star, a Lakewood 8 star showed up at my doorstep. You would not have believed it. So I guess my last piece of advice is something cheaper than season tickets to the Broncos are season tickets to Lakewood City Council. I mean, come on. The thrill is there, people. So that's what I really have to say. So thank you so much for everything and everything you do.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for coming out. Sam? Okay. We'll come back. Ms. Knoble? Good evening.
Good evening. Thanks. Kathy Knoble, Ward 2. I'm back again. I've just done some research following up on my comment from last week about the ballot initiative that was not on the ballot. I'm still upset about it, and it still perturbs me enough to bring me here tonight. And the research I did was the Colorado Open Records Act, CORA, which reveals a stream of emails between Mayor Paul and city staff regarding the Citizens Initiative. Staff was requested to craft talking points in opposition to the initiative. Basically, this is fear factors that would resonate well with the citizens. That is not okay. I didn't see any correspondence from the city manager or from the city attorney advising council not to expend city tax dollars, wages spent for staff research to oppose a citizen initiative is unethical and most likely illegal. 20 years ago, when I sat on council, we were always advised we could not expend more than $200 personally on any kind of an issue. So I'm sure it works both ways with an initiative. It is illegal. That is voter tampering. That is voter suppression. Doing an act that basically removes a citizen-driven initiative from the citizens of Lakewood, the opportunity to vote, voice their opinions. Whether you're for it or against it, it doesn't matter. It's the democratic process that you interfered with. That's what I object to. I also object to all the outside dollars coming from drug money, big people, builders, homeowners that are home builders organizations that are supporting candidates for this city Lakewood race. When I look at the expenditures of some of these candidates of upwards of $20,000 for a single race is absurd. It's ridiculous. It's out of line. It is not appropriate. Citizens of Lakewood, I urge you to understand your candidates, what they stand for, who is supporting them, who is backing them, because if they're backed by home developers, they're going to support them. They're going to be rubber stamping all these projects that you are complaining about in your neighborhoods that drive traffic, that drive congestion, and overtaxes our infrastructure. It is not okay. It is unethical, it is evil, and I'm here to just express my opinions civilly, but please understand that I am deeply, deeply disturbed the fact of the actions that you have done. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anybody else? Come on down, give us your name and address. It'll be great.
Mike Muller, Ward 4, you know my address. I also wanted to give kudos to Dave. When I first met Dave, which was, I don't know how many years ago, we used to have some running battles. But what he has done for the Ward 4 and for this city is unbelievable. I commend him. It's just wonderful what he's done. Now, my second point is, especially after that last lady spoke, if any of you want one of these T-shirts, see me after the meeting.
Could I have one, please?
I'll give you.
Yes.
You put it on. I'll give it to you.
I'll put it on after the meeting.
No, right now.
No, I can't right now. We don't want to break
So
decorum.
If anyone wants one, let me know. I'll get one for him.
Thank you. I'm going to hold you to that because I've been wanting one. Miss Duffy, I guess you'd like to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council. After the presentation regarding the trolley, I did take the issue back to my neighborhood. And like most of you have done, I went door to door. I sent out a wonderful email giving them some history of the trolley and the proposal that our staff had come up with. And they appreciated the fact that it was proposed down the historic line. And that was great, except that was 50 years ago, over 50 years ago, that it stopped running down that line. The neighborhood is not in favor of bringing that back. Now, there were a few people that thought it was going to run every day, and they would be able to take the trolley to the light rail station, so they were all about that. But after I went door to door, and I got a lot of emails from the entire neighborhood, but for the people that it would directly affect, all the way down 14th Avenue to the park, I went house to house. I gave them a chance to rate 1 to 10, 1 being they hate the idea, 10 being they love it. It came up with a 2.5. So our neighborhood is not on board with that. I understand you did leave it at the Heritage Center master plan. You know, that's probably going to be debated later on for another time, but I did want you to know that our neighborhood is just not on board with this, so thank you. And just a comment, I too am a little concerned about the money being spent on this election cycle. I mean, I kind of looked at, I'm an accountant, as you well know, most of you. Charlie, I think you spent $6,600 getting elected. I think Barb spent 10 and Dana 12. But in Ward 1, we've got someone that's spending $22,000. That's twice what you spent to get elected. And we haven't had 100% inflation in 4 years. No, 2 years? Have you been on 2 years? So we haven't had 100% inflation. And I think in Ward 5, we've got someone with over $30,000 that they're spending on the election. That's what I'm looking at when I look at what's on the city website. So I'm a little concerned. Pardon? Oh, not Ward 5, Ward 3. Ward 3, yes. I'm so sorry, Karen. Do I need to write you a check? Get you up to that? No, in Ward 3, there's someone with over $30,000, and in Ward 1, there's someone with over 20. I'm struggling with why it would take that much money to spend in a ward, not the city, but in the ward. And I'm really struggling with why these candidates are spending that kind of money to get elected. We should want them. I mean, they should give us their views and we should want to vote for them. I'm concerned with where our city's going. Thank you.
Anybody else? Public comment? Come on down. Just give us your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Lori Niquette, and I live in Ward 1. I'll give you the address. Good evening, Mayor Paul and city councilors. I came to live in Lakewood in 1953 when I was in grade school. I became active with the city while working to eliminate the free storage of recreation vehicles on city streets, especially next to our city parks. Fortunately, the city council voted for restrictions to the RV parking in our neighborhood, returned to that of residential without free RV storage. Since then, I have attended city council meetings on a regular basis. I felt compelled to be involved again when the Federal Center Horseshoe property at 6th and Union was under consideration for purchase by the city to be developed into another area like Belmar with extremely high density and even taller buildings. The huge turnout of people felt, as I did, that the intended purpose had not been adequately promoted to the citizens, nor had feedback been solicited from the local area. We now have what is an almost unlimited amount of development with high-density projects. The city seems to be catering to the developers, and no regard is given to anyone who questions this activity from this podium. From Ward 1 representation on the board, we hear common sense questions regarding the growth, infrastructure, and schools. Then Councilor Johnson asked that we take a deep breath and see how this is working before further projects were approved. She didn't ask that all projects be stopped, which has been inferred in comments from other sources, just that we take the time to review discussion or decisions to be sure of what is best for Lakewood. Personally, I'm happy that both the representatives of Ward 1 ask important questions to clarify projects and processes that are presented to the council. While I feel that we have a very qualified staff of employees in the city of Lakewood, I don't remember the management of any company I've ever worked for saying, just come up with what you want and we'll sign off on it. Since I'm very concerned about the growth in Lakewood, especially high density and tall apartment buildings that we now have along the Union Corridor, I was especially pleased to receive the publication, the whole story, and read the whole thing. The wording in that newsletter was closer to what I've heard from the counselors who asked more questions and wanted to consider alternatives. I may not agree with everything in the newsletter, but it repeated what I have heard. I have attended the majority of Ward 1 meetings that Councilor Johnson has held since she was first elected, and she, with later elected Charlie Abel, have listened to our requests and have taken action to work on our problems with parking and a number of other issues. She is responsive to us. I am happy that she is an independent thinker. She works well with the rest of the council when the projects benefit both the citizens of Lakewood and Ward 1. Thank you.
Thank you. Next. Come on down. And whoever, if you're not signed up and you want to speak next, please jump in the bullpen on either side. Good evening.
Jim Kinney, 1984 South Parfait Drive, that's Ward 5. Native son, born in here in 1950. Graduated from Jefferson County High School about the same time that Ramey did. I guess I'd like to just bring up one observation I've had. When we went through the whole process of, to me it was dragged out, trying to talk about whether Ramey should have the chance to run again and what the rules said and should we take it to court or whatever. I guess I'd like to point out, as far as I know, and please correct me if I'm wrong, this council has done nothing since that prolonged discussion to sit down and make that rule clear. So I kind of think it was done more to, what else should say, smear one of the people you work with than actually interested in making better governments on how that rule should read. So we're right in the same place we were that Ramey got into. Somebody else could have gotten into that if somebody had passed away or something. It's still not clear. So I guess I fault that we haven't gone forward and straightened that out. We used it for some other reason. And I'd like to say, as far as the little mix-up there between Ward 1 and Ward 5, the other thing that is happening more and more and more, it isn't just the money that is under our Lakewood's purview that we're watching. There's more and more money coming in under PACs and different types of venues that it can come in on. So even though Ward 5 might not show a lot, there's money coming in from realtors and what have you, from other venues that are not showing up under the numbers for Lakewood. So it's a little disingenuous to say, well, we've only got this much, because there's a lot more coming in that isn't showing up there. So I think I'm speaking for the community when I say we need to take a lot longer look at where the money's coming from. We did put a cap of $2,500 on, but there's plenty of ways to go around that. You're actually getting shortchanged if you hold yourself to those low numbers. So I think we really ought to think, what are Lakewood values and what do we all want to support, and do it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anybody else? Seeing none, I'll close public comment. And I just have a couple comments. Mr. Vontava, thank you for coming out. Certainly, I think everybody up here has probably sat right where you live and dealt with that. So, and I can understand sometimes those answers from traffic engineering can be no, and no and no. But let's see what we can do, or at least take a look, and we'll follow up. And I think it's probably something of a larger look as well. One thing that's interesting that we're starting to see too is with these traffic finding apps like Waze and things like that, they route people through routes that normally hadn't been used. And so you're seeing this increase even with technology. So, but thank you for coming out. All right. Ms. Shakti, do you have a comment, or do you want to wait till general business?
Just a comment on the.
Okay.
I just wanted to say that for myself, the discussion about how long term limits should be and the details of that had nothing to do with smearing. It was just figuring out what should be the best way. And I agree that we should, at some point, not me because I won't be here, but move forward on sort of making that clear for the future. Good points about the different kinds of money that come into campaigns. We're constrained by the Supreme Court in what we can do to limit some of the kinds of money that go into campaigns, and I think they're going into all different kinds of campaigns. For example, we heard, it wasn't called the Watchdog, somebody mentioned another, if you get a free newspaper at your house, somebody paid for it. And that's true for pretty much anything you get free at your house. So it's a complicated issue, and nationally it really needs to be addressed.
So will the clerk please read the consent agenda into the record?
The consent agenda consists of items 6 through 9 inclusive. Item 6, Resolution 2017-37, supporting a grant application to Great Outdoors Colorado, requesting funding for Challenge Course and Outdoor Education Center at Warren Tech High School, and authorizing execution of grant agreement and intergovernmental agreement if approved. Item 7, Resolution 2017-38, supporting grant application to Colorado Parks and Wildlife, requesting funding to design alternate parallel trail along portions of Bear Creek Trail, and authorizing Director of Community Resources to execute grant agreement if approved.
Item 8, Resolution 2017-39, requesting authorization for the submittal of an application for and subsequent acceptance of a grant from Jefferson County Open Space Program to provide funding for future acquisition of a portion of property owned by the Vernon F. Taylor Jr. Revocable Trust. And item 9, Resolution 2017-40, supporting reauthorization by the Colorado General Assembly of the Colorado Lottery Division for 2018.
Thank you very much. I forgot to mention the use of the consent agenda has been made to expedite council action. Tonight it only contains resolutions. Resolutions are items of routine nature. Members of the public will have an opportunity in a moment to comment. So I will now open the public comment. And I had Stephen and Sam. Is this what? Okay, we're still going down a little bit further. Sam, did you want to comment on anything in the consent agenda?
Just on that resolution 8.
Okay, come on down. Yep. It'll be resolution 2017-39. Taylor property.
Hi, I'm Sam Sotiros, 2143 South Yarrow Street, Lakewood, Southern Gables neighborhood. And I just wanted to comment on this resolution about acquiring some of this property. I just think it's wonderful. When I heard about it, and I heard that Ms. Hodgson had put so much time into it over the years, I just wanted to give her a big bear hug. I mean, I think this is just one of the greatest things actually for our city, because when you think about it, I mean, this unit is so beautiful. It's just amazing. You know, I'm fortunate my office is right across the street from it, so I get to look at it all the time. And I've seen lots of elk, deer, coyotes, all kinds of wildlife. There's a big red-tailed hawk nest that's in the trees there that's been there for years. I've even seen like a bald eagle fly over the area. But, you know, I grew up in the neighborhood, so I saw it all the time. And I've just always thought this is just one of the most beautiful places in Lakewood. And throughout the seasons, just the changes, it's just dynamic. I mean, every month it changes. And actually at one time I had thought about making a calendar and was taking pictures of it during these different changes. And my photography skills are terrible, so it didn't turn out very well. But yeah, you know, in the springtime, the hay fields are just so green. When they cut the grass, it's cool to see it, you know, out there. And then they bale up the hay, and it's just amazing. But the trees in the fall, you know, are just incredible. It's just, you know, to preserve that in some fashion would be fantastic. But I think the reason it's so important is we have to have something in Lakewood that distinguishes us from other cities. And when we have like an iconic gem, like this piece of property, it's just a must. And we, you know, to think of Lakewood, you think of Casa Bonita, you think of the White Fence Farm, but that piece of property there off of Wadsworth, one of our primary roadways in Lakewood, is just, you know, it distinguishes us from everywhere else. And I just think it's fantastic if we could really preserve that. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming out. Anybody else wish to speak on, yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I forgot to sign up. Kathy Knoble, Ward 2. I'm here to address item 7, resolution 38, supporting grant application to Colorado Parks and Wildlife requesting funding to design alternate parallel trail along portions of Bear Creek Trail. I noticed in the council packet that hikers and bikers were addressed as users of this alternate trail. And I also want to express a voice for the equestrian community in Lakewood. We are alive and well and quite strong. And it is important, I think, that all users are supported and encouraged when public dollars are used for maintenance, increasing, whatever. So I wanted to put that in there. I also want to take this opportunity to remind the hikers and the bikers that all of you yield to the horseback riders in the parks. Thank you very much.
Well said. Thank you. Anybody else? All right. Yes, sir. Come on down. What's that? Yeah, right down here. Welcome. If you wouldn't mind giving us your name and address.
Ernie Kohler. It's Kohler. I say Kohler because of the way it's spelled. Koehler, but it's Kohler. Anyway, I live in Ward 4, about 8 blocks away from Green Gables. Totally flabbergasted by how that all went down, and really disappointed in pest control. We are being overran by rabbits. All the wildlife that was in Green Gable, I caddied there when I was a kid back in the 60s. But all those critters had to go somewhere. They came into my yard. Pest control. What are we going to do about that? I mean, if you call, you can't kill them, can't shoot them. You have to shoo them out, round them up, whatever. So I don't know. This might be a small issue, but it's kind of a big issue in my neighborhood because of the, I don't know if you consider rabbits pests, but boy, they're pretty pesky, and they cause a lot of havoc on my lawn. I can't plant grass there without them just going to town. So and of course there's nothing that can be done now about Green Gables, but the other Taylor, something can be done about that. And those critters that are moved into that area of our neighborhood, we don't want them. We want them to have a home. So anyway, I don't know if this was even considered when that land was sold to all these big developers. And of course the traffic is incredible, and they haven't even begun to move into there yet. So it's going to be a mess. It's going to be a real mess. It's a mess now. It's been gradually getting to this, but when it all said and done in that area, it's not going to be pretty as far as traffic control. I live on Florida, which used to be a very minimal traffic. Now it's a speedway. Very rarely do I see it being patrolled or any sheriffs cops sitting out there to, there used to be speed bumps. There used to be a traffic light on Florida, which would slow traffic down. No such thing now. So on weekends, and even during the school rush hour, you see people literally doing 50, 60 miles an hour down Florida, 30 mile an hour. So there's a lot of issues that have to be addressed when it comes to the Green Gables mistake, I guess, anyway. But I know that's progress. But really disappointed in the way that all went down when it started being built up. I thought, where did this come from? Why wasn't I told? I didn't have any input, no say-so whatsoever into this. So going forward with the other 120 acres, that absolutely needs to be addressed and curtailed before that gets overdeveloped, like Ward 4 is now in that area. So anyway, that's all I have to say. Pesky little rabbits.
Yes. Thank you, sir. I think we can all attest to them making their way throughout all of Lakewood. Anybody else? Public comment on the... All right. I'll close public comment. And just to clarify, the grant application for the Taylor property is to preserve it for open space, not for development. So it'll be for a portion of the Taylor property to preserve for open space. Yep, not for development. Council President Roybal?
Yes, Mayor Paul, I move for the adoption of resolutions, all of which are included in the consent agenda, items introduced into record by the city clerk.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second on the consent agenda. Councilor Gutwein.
I don't think anyone can describe the Taylor property as well as Sam Soteros just did. That was beautiful, and I'm so excited that this is going to be preserved for generations to come, and just really want to thank Kathy Hodgson for your incredible work. This is a lasting gift for Lakewood and for Ward 5, and we're all very excited about it, so thank you very much.
Great. So I would just echo that. All these consent agenda items are pretty great tonight, and all have to do with great opportunities for the community to enhance parks and recreational opportunities. But to single out Ms. Hodgson, who does not appreciate it, but this is a big deal, and you've worked on it for a long time, and you should be really proud. And this is the first step. So thank you, Kit. Thank you, your staff, and all the City of Lakewood folks who've been involved. With that, we have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes. And that passes 10 ayes, 0 nays. The clerk please read item 6. 10. Thank you, Pete.
Item 10?
I think so.
Item 10, the second public hearing for ordinance O 2017-13, adopting a revised budget for the year 2017 for the City of Lakewood, Colorado, and further adopting the annual budget for the city for the fiscal year beginning on the first day of January 2018 and ending on December 31st, 2018, estimating the amount of money necessary to be raised by levying taxes for the year 2017 to defray the cost of municipal government of the City of Lakewood, Colorado for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2018 and ending December 31st, 2018, and estimating the amount of money to be derived from other revenue sources, setting forth the appropriations for each fund.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome our City Treasurer, Finance Director, Larry Dorr. Mr. Dorr, this will be your third presentation, and this is a unique part of our city government. We have 2 public hearings on this ordinance, and so tonight will be the final, and it must be done by, is it November 1st? Hence the reason we're here tonight on October 30th. Sir.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of City Council. Once again, Larry Dorr, City of Lakewood Finance Director and City Treasurer. Well, tonight marks the final step in the budget process, and this year has been eventful, just like all of the others. And as Mayor Paul just mentioned, Council has no new information related to the budget tonight. The council's been involved in a public setting for over 3 months, as you see on this calendar on your screen. And of course, many months of strategic planning have gone into the proposed budget. And of course, we have a 540-page document that's out on lakewood.org. And I'm not going to repeat any of the details from previous presentations that have occurred. Council had a study session on September 18th, and that's available on lakewood.org, the video and all of the meeting minutes and all of the items discussed. But at that meeting, of course, our Chief of Police, our Director of Public Works, and also our Director of Community Resources and myself presented a lot of details related to projects and programs and new initiatives happening across the community. So anybody who's interested in those details can certainly go back and have a look at those videos and learn more about the details of that. So I won't be repeating any more of the details related to that. Folks can go out and have a look. But tonight, as Mayor Paul referred to, is the last chance for the public to have input in the process, and hence the reason that that's been a good long process for the last 3 months. And then, of course, council will need to adopt the budget. As mentioned, our city charter requires an adoption by November 1st, so this is the last chance to really move through that. I just have a couple of updates on the Lakewood economy, and one of the things that we've all been discussing is really the hailstorm and how that's impacted the community in so many ways, not least of which was the closure of the Colorado Mills Mall, and of course that making up over 10% of the city's sales tax income. It's something that we've all been watching very, very carefully. I will tell you that since our last meeting, Dick's Sporting Goods has opened up, and I'm anticipating that other stores at the mall that have their own entrances will begin to open, and we'll not only see that tax revenue, but people getting back to work at Colorado Mills, and that's very exciting. But we've had other openings at Wadsworth and Mississippi. Johnny's New York Pizza has reopened, and that's encouraging to see all the revitalization and people getting back to work and their businesses reopening since this very substantial hailstorm. We are working on repairing city buildings. We have damage as well related to this, and we are collecting funds from our insurers and beginning the contracting to repair city property. And then we've issued over 12,000 permits for repairs to roofs on commercial buildings and at residences throughout the community. So this is probably one of the largest events that is impacting the city's budget, and something for us all to keep an eye on. I have shown this slide 3 times now at 3 different meetings, but each time I've had a new item to talk about. And most recently in the news media, it's been reported that the Amazon Corporation, which is licensed with the city and is part of the internet tax that everybody's talking about. And in earlier meetings, just for context, I've spoken about their Prime and how that's impacting consumer behavior, and I've talked about the bankruptcy of related businesses and so forth. And it's been reported that now the company is interested in getting involved in the pharmacy business just since our last meeting, and that's very interesting and should be something that we'd be interested about as a community and also as a city government that relies on a sales tax. And since that announcement, the Walgreens Corporation, its stock is down 15%, and the CVS Corporation, its stock is down 10%. Those companies employ 400,000 people. So those are very, very meaningful news items. Interestingly, the city does not tax prescription drugs at all, so that wouldn't have an impact on the city hall budget. So all of those things are continuing to evolve just in a matter of days and weeks. And so I wanted to just point that out to you. If you might have read some of those articles and you might have been curious about that, I just want to bring that to your attention. So with that, let me just cover a few budget follow-ups, and I think I'll be ready to answer any questions. The public will have its opportunity to speak during the public hearing. One budget follow-up I want to let you know about is the ordinance for tonight that council will be voting on will include the amendment that was voted on back on the 9th, and that is for a 4th of July event to be an evening event, and we increase the appropriations for 2018 for ordinance 2017-13 that you'll be voting on here in a few minutes. So that was included in there for the 2018 budget. Just wanted to follow up on that. And then there are a couple of resolutions that I spoke about on October 9th and back in September related to your budget study session, and that is to change the 2 pension plans that the city has for its workers, one for our sworn police officers and one for our non-sworn workers. And it's something that we've never done before, and we have to have this resolution adopted after the budget is adopted. They kind of go together, but they do need to be voted on separately. I should let you know that our sworn police officers also needed to vote as participants in this plan to increase their worker pay deductions, to increase their contributions. And the police officers voted 94% in favor of such a change. So I wanted to report that data to you as well. You might recall that one of the projects presented by our Director of Community Resources, Kit Newland, and myself was related to energy performance contracting and the idea of making improvements in a number of facilities, buildings across the entire city. And that ordinance 2017-14 is also to follow the budget adoption because it requires some financing related to that. And Mr. Mayor, we'll need to table that ordinance because we're just not ready with the lease document to be approved by City Council. This is a real complicated financing, and we're going to be doing lots of improvements to lots of facilities, and getting that lease right is taking just a little bit of additional time. So we'll table that to a future meeting, and I will be back to get your approval on that. But at the end of the day, we're making improvements to the Civic Center, the Safety Center, lots of recreation centers. Many of those facilities already have loans, and it's proving to be a complicated lease document to get done. So we'll need a little bit more time. I also want to point out that this ordinance that you'll be voting on here in a moment not only does all the appropriations and the approval of purchases and all of that, but it also reauthorizes the city's property tax mill levy. The city's required to do that under state law and under the county regulations in order for the mill levy to be reauthorized. And then related to that, it will also approve the Tabor refund of $5.8 million. That's also in the ordinance and is a part of your vote as well here in a moment. I also want to just point out in terms of a follow-up, back in September, my colleague Nanette Nealon, our Deputy City Manager, presented the budget for the Lakewood Reinvestment Authority. Now that is approved via a resolution and requires a second meeting, and Ms. Nealon won't have a presentation, but it's just up for your review and adoption. So that will happen just a little bit later tonight. And with that, I just want to get into the record that this budget meets all of the state law requirements for Tabor reserves and appropriations. Also meets the requirements of the city's charter, that revenues and beginning balances exceed expenditures, and that the city manager has presented the budget in a timely basis. And then last but not least, it will be adopted by November 1st. And that's really our last to-do item for the night. Also, we believe that this budget, as documented and as presented, meets the standards for the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award, and my office will be submitting this to the Government Finance Officers Association of the United States and Canada for another review and hopefully for another award. I just want to thank everybody who's contributed to the process. Mayor and Council, of course, all of your activities related to the budget, all of your input, and of course all of the staff that's involved, my colleagues, the department heads, various budget coordinators, and our budget accountant. So thanks to all for contributing to this process. And with that, Mr. Mayor, we're ready to open it up for a public hearing, and I'll have a seat and answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. All right, with that being said, I will now open the public hearing on ordinance 2017-13. Nobody has indicated a wish to speak, but if you would, Stephen, this is the item. Come on down. Good evening.
Stephen Packley, 15221 West Auburn Avenue, 4th Ward. So I'm here tonight. I read in the Looking at Lakewood newsletter, this proposed budget calls for an additional 5 officers, which would put the number at an additional 21 officers in the past 3 years. Estimated sales tax revenue down $2.7 million from the hail damage, another approximately $4 million in damage to equipment, buildings, vehicles. I personally don't think it is responsible to spend additional money when we have less money coming in and we have more costs. I do not think the number one priority of this city are more police, more fire, more parks, more green space. I think it's roads and traffic. That's obviously my opinion. I also think a better way to spend any additional money would be to reimburse the residents of Solterra for paying over $13 million for the widening of or additional lanes of Alameda, which is not contained within Solterra, and also over $2 million, almost $3 million for a dog park, also not contained within Solterra, and parking spaces for Park Green Mountain that also is not contained within Solterra. I think that money would be better used to pay for things that the whole city uses. I don't think it's appropriate for one neighborhood to pay for things outside. So just my comment, I do not agree with this budget. I do not think it is money responsibly spent. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for coming out. Anybody else? Mr. Gifford.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council and fellow residents. Michael Gifford, I live in Ward 3 and also candidate for Lakewood City Council. After studying the budget, I'm here to speak in favor of the budget this evening and just want to talk about a couple brief items. Number one, 68%, almost 70% of the city's general fund revenue comes from sales tax. And I just want to encourage the entire city council and staff to think about the future. Right now, most sales tax comes from a sale at a store. So the way you win the game is you have more stores within the borders of Lakewood. But in the future, as more and more purchases are made over the internet, the sales tax is generated by where somebody lives or where they receive a package. And as the rules of the game change and 70% of our revenue comes from that source, And the largest item that we have in the budget on the expenditure side is police services. We need to keep in mind where our revenue comes from, and we need to be flexible in paying attention to that change that's happening before our very eyes. So nothing is etched in stone about the amount of sales tax revenue that we make, and we need to remain flexible. The second thing is on the stormwater, and I talked about this with you before, but the other part of the story I want to make sure you understand is that the city, under the Clean Water Act from the federal government, has certain stormwater obligations that are different from keeping homes out of water or doing capital improvements. There are certain items we have to do as a city under federal law to keep erosion, sediment, and chemicals from going through the storm system and into a waterway. And if there was any attempt to lower the stormwater utility fee, you would still have to perform those obligations required by the federal government, and you would have to turn to another source like the general fund to cover those costs. That's what's happening right now in Colorado Springs. Their city is down a number of police officers. That's under public record. You can read the statements by their mayor, John Suthers, to that effect. And so I want to continue talking about that we need to be careful not to do that and end up having to dip into our general fund to perform those items that are required under the Clean Water Act. So with that, I do support the overall budget, and thanks for listening to those two items this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kinney, did you want to speak on the budget?
I have two questions. I don't know if this is interactive that they'll answer after we do, but however, I would like to ask, after what we went through with Mills, thinking of another hailstorm, water shortage, fire, any number of things that could happen, and some say are happening more frequently. Does this budget show a change in developing the budget, or actually within the budget that recognizes that those things can happen? It just happened, and how do we change so that we can better manage so it doesn't have such a big impact on us? That's one question. And as far as stormwater, I guess I'd like to ask, are we keeping up with what magnitudes of storms we're having to develop for? And are we keeping up? We're talking about the Clean Water Act. There's a lot of distance between the Clean Water Act and what happens on the ground, and it can be highly impacted by things like who the president is. Are we keeping up with what we need to do and should do and are required to do, or do we have some leeway? I worked for the Bureau of Reclamation that did a lot of flood management and floodwater. Keeping up with all of the issues on how much the flood could be, have things changed? That was a big part of doing a good job in spending the right amount of money to be prepared. Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, I'll close public comment and ask Council President Roybal for a motion.
I move for the adoption of ordinance 2017-13.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second, and now we have some questions. Councilor Abel.
Mr. Dorr, I just wanted to ask, we're going to table ordinance, or you asked to table ordinance 2017-14. It is in the budget that we're about to pass, so how do we make that adjustment later?
Thank you. It should remain in the budget in terms of lease proceeds in, expenditures out for all of the mechanical items and all of the purchases 50,000 and greater. So it's my recommendation that the budget be approved as is, but the ordinance authorizing the lease of the HVAC controls and the LED lighting fixtures and the air handlers. That will come a little bit later. As I say, the complexity around it is there's a lot of collateral going in a lot of different places, and we need to describe that really, really well in the lease document. And the one that is contained in this ordinance that's separate is just not ready for that yet. So the budget should be adopted, and that way the project will carry forward when the next step comes, I think probably in the January timeframe.
And the amount, is it expected to change appreciably?
It is
Or at
not.
all?
It's not expected to change because the cost is merely the light fixtures, the air handlers, all of those, and that should not change at all.
It's just the descriptive language then?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions from council? Mr. Dorr, you heard a question pertaining to the Colorado Mills situation, which fortunately we do have a rainy day fund, which is our reserves, and that's where we're dipping in to cover that. And we've been fortunate to add to those for, I think, probably 10 out of the last 12 years. And so to that point, I mean, it's always hard to predict, but do you feel, I guess for me asking, are you comfortable with where our reserves are at? I know we've reinvested over the last couple of years and brought those down, but we're still certainly within Tabor limits as well as state limits and way above.
Yes, thank you. That was, I think, from the first gentleman to the podium, and let me just talk a little bit about that. For one, this closure of the mills is anticipated to be a sort of a one-time event. It's not closed permanently. It will reopen. So there's a one-time interruption in the city's revenues, and so that's indeed what the reserves of the rainy day fund is for. The council, in addition to the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights, which requires a certain amount of reserves, the council has also set a minimum for just that purpose. We've had events in the past during my career. We've had, a leak in a swimming pool. We've had the tragedies of September 11th. We've had the Great Recession, and the city has weathered all of those events due to its reserves. And in terms of what's the right amount, I will tell you I do feel comfortable. I will say that, at times it can be too large, it can be too small, but I think that it's just right and certainly above council's minimum. And it's time for investment in other projects. The other thing I would say is that council goes through a very in-depth exercise about its priorities at its annual retreat and where to spend funds, and very clearly council's direction is to add to the city's police force, and that's been a real careful and thoughtful and in-depth process over a number of years. So clearly that happens related to the reserves. I think the last gentleman to the podium talked a little bit about our preparation for other hailstorms, fires, and things of that nature, and of course that's what the reserves are on hand for. And I think that the conversation after these large projects, these generational type projects that are occurring, council will probably be thinking about holding its level of reserves for the near future, just until some of those other things are better known, like when will the mills open and what does all of that look like. So hopefully that gives you some thoughts and answers some of the questions.
Mayor Pro Tem Harrison.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. One thing that might make us feel a little bit better, Larry, if you would talk about the insurance coverage. I know you touched a little bit about it. All of us that experienced some hail damage quickly called our insurance agent and filed the claim. Can you explain the process for the city in terms of what happens with all that?
Sure. Let's see. Well, council has taken action as well related to an ordinance that authorized the expenditure of proceeds that the city has received from its insurers. Let's see, it's somewhere around $4 million in damage at this point, and the city has a risk manager and a risk management program, and we're self-insured to certain levels for property damage, and so we have people involved in that right away to protect the community's assets, our city hall, our parks, our various rec centers, our police station, you name it. And so yes, the city has filed claims with its insurers, major insurers, and we've received those insurance proceeds. So just like citizens and businesses in the community, we now are looking for contractors and, designing specifications to replace rooftops. And we've had many vehicles damaged, a few totaled. And so we're in the process of repairing and replacing all of those, and it will take several months and lots of hard work on the part of our risk management program. So yes, the city has been involved in that, and we collected proceeds from our insurers. We didn't have to use our reserves to do that. We are self-insured for a few things, a few vehicles and things like that, but this isn't another major hit as that may have been described. Thank you.
Councilor Abel?
Just to follow up, what is the amount of that that we're paying out of pocket on from self-insurance on the hailstorm?
The number, I don't have the number right at hand, and I recall council authorized that, I think in the August-September timeframe, and we can go back and look through the records there, but an amount was appropriated greater than the amount of insurance proceeds, and it was less than $1 million, but I can certainly report that back to council at a later date.
Is there a static level of our self-insurance we're responsible for payment or for reimbursement to ourselves for how much?
Yeah.
Before insurance kicks in?
Sure. Yeah, we do have, just like a business or a household, there's kind of like that deductible, and we have a deductible that we pay for through our self-insurance program. And then after, there's the catastrophic coverage. And it's different based on the number of events and whether or not it's related to the city's own liability or whatnot. And I don't have that number right handy in terms of what our minimums would be, but I could certainly share that back with you. And I can tell you that the city does have the reserves to pay for, those deductibles, those amounts that the city's responsible for.
I understand that, and but I would appreciate seeing that number eventually.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? All right, comments on the budget? Okay, Councilor Shakti.
The budget is a document we go over so many times. You're not always clear when you say certain things, and a lot of people put a lot of work into this, and so I just would like to recognize that. It's pretty amazing to have information about what's happening all over the city brought together. On the day when I read it, the first day we discussed it, I was feeling sort of frustrated, like, what are we doing anyway? Kind of just in a mood. And I read the budget and I talked to Kathy and I was like, we're doing a lot of cool stuff. And you get sort of micro-focused and you don't see the big picture sometimes. And it's really good that we do this. I mean, we need to do budget, but it's also really good in terms of having a big picture that we have this view once a year. So thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Gutwein.
Thank you. So I just want to say that by and large, I think that this budget very well represents what I hear from most of the people in our community, certainly not everyone. But with the emphasis on public safety, I'm really excited to have extra agents on the street. We have had additional concerns about homeless populations in Ward 5. So I'm thankful for that. And then also really excited about the improvements in our parks and open space, and of course the Taylor property, like we already talked about, and the emphasis and additional budget that we have for sustainability and addressing those, being more efficient with our finances and our natural resources. So just really thankful for our high quality of life here in Lakewood and for this fiscally responsible budget that maintains it. So thank you to all of staff for making this possible. We hear it from the citizens, but then it's really you that makes it happen. So thank you.
Thank you. All right. Well, I will certainly be supporting this. I appreciate all the hard work, and it's a yearly process. It's kind of 3 or 4 months for us, but for staff, it's all year. So thank you for that. And I certainly understand the traffic concerns. And I do understand, the idea of, well, why are we putting police out there and not addressing traffic? Public safety is our #1 priority in the city of Lakewood. And if you go to other parts of our community, especially along West Colfax, where these new agents will most likely be stationed, we have got some serious issues that make Lakewood much different than other parts. And so that's an extremely important focus, and I think that'll be echoed by council up here. And it's also something that we've been working on the last few years to increase the number of police agents on the streets. I will say for the Solterra piece, that's an interesting aspect when we have the development discussion about, the impacts of development on a community. The reason that why Solterra is paying $13 million for a road is because development pays its way in the city of Lakewood. And that metropolitan district was formed over a decade ago. And as part of that metropolitan district, they are to provide the improvements of roadway to make sure that it doesn't create a negative impact. And that's the way it is with every other large development in the city of Lakewood. So I know it can be challenging, especially for somebody who might have moved in 2 years ago, 5 years ago, when these things were in place over a decade ago, to look at that and say, why are we providing this benefit? But it's actually, that's the way development happens in the city, and it creates an opportunity for all folks to be here and try to balance the impacts of what that looks like. So with that, I believe we have a motion and a second, and I'll ask you to please cast your votes. And that passes 10 ayes, 0 nays. Will the clerk please read item 11 into the record?
Item 11, Ordinance O 2017-14, authorizing and ratifying the City of Lakewood entering into an annually renewable lease purchase agreement between All American Investment Group, LLC, as leaseor and the city as leasee for the purpose of financing the acquisition of certain energy conservation improvements, equipment, and controls intended to result in energy conservation savings in certain public buildings used by the city to conduct its governmental business, authorizing the execution of documents related thereto.
Thank you. I'll now ask Council President Roybal for a motion.
Yes, Mayor. I move to table Ordinance 2017-14 on second and final reading.
Second.
Right, we have a motion and a second to table Ordinance 2017-14 as described by our Finance Director, Larry Dorr. Any questions or comments? All right, please cast your votes. And that passes 10 ayes, 0 nays. Will the clerk please read item 12 into the record?
Item 12, Resolution 2017-41, authorizing the adoption of the 9th Amendment to the Lakewood Employees Money Purchase Pension Plan and Trust Agreement.
Okay, I'll now open the public hearing on item 2017-41. Nobody has signed up. Anybody wish to speak? Seeing none, I'll close public comment and ask for a motion.
I move for the adoption of Resolution 2017-41.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please cast your votes. And that passes 10 ayes, 0 nays. Will the clerk please read item 13 into the record?
Item 13, Resolution 2017-42, authorizing the adoption of the 3rd Amendment to the Lakewood Police Money Purchase Pension Plan and Trust Agreement.
Mayor, I move for the adoption of Resolution 2017-42.
Second.
Right, we have a motion and a second. Any questions? I mean, we have the chief here. Don't you think we should ask a bunch of questions? No. All right. Please cast your votes. Chief, you're getting off easy tonight, sir. Passes 10 ayes, 0 nays. All right, general business. Okay, executive report, Ms. Hodson.
Thank you. Very briefly, I too would like to thank the team that worked on the budget, and it does take months and months of work. I'd like to thank our Finance Director, Larry Dorr, and his very capable staff. Also, the department heads and all of the budget coordinators who worked diligently on the budget. And I'd also, this is our last real meeting with some counselors, and on behalf of the organization and city personnel, I would like to thank Councilor Coop, Counselor Wickman, and Counselor Shakti for your service to the citizens of Lakewood. And good luck to the others who are running and still here. So, yeah, so thank you for your service. Thank you for all your years and dedication through these very long and fun meetings. So thank you.
Anything, Ms. Greer? All right, we'll go to reports. We still do have another meeting, but the next meeting will go pretty fast. So do you want to do reports after the second meeting, or do you want to do them after this meeting? Okay, I guess we'll wait till the second meeting. So I'm going to...
We would have to recess as council, reconvene as the Urban Renewal Board, adjourn as the Urban Renewal Board, and then reconvene as council. Not that big a deal, but just...
Okay. Okay. All right. So yeah, so we'll go with reports. I will, Mayor Pro Tem Harrison.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to remind everybody that Ward 5 will be having our meeting this coming Saturday, and our topic will be small business. November is Small Business Month, so the timing is perfect. We'll have Robert Smith will be a part of our Lakewood Economic Development Department talking about small business in Lakewood. And I'm very excited about that. The other thing I'd like to talk about is on Saturday, November 4th. The Thirsty Bear Bar and Grill will be holding a spaghetti festival where all benefits will go to the Jeffco Action Center. I did put flyers back there on the back table, and it's $6 a plate, as much spaghetti as you can eat. So pretty neat deal. It's wonderful to have a local business supporting Jeffco Action Center, so we're thrilled about that. Thirsty Bear Bar and Grill, and it's down at 2595 South Lewis Way. It's right off of Morrison and Kipling Street, if you can imagine where that is. So on the east side of Kipling. Thank you.
Council President Roybal.
No report.
Councilor Shakti.
I feel like I should say something because it's my last meeting. It ends up feeling more moving than I would have expected. I'm really proud of a number of things that we've been able to accomplish over the last 4 years. And I've learned a whole lot. And I have been very impressed by staff and all that they could teach me, but also that they have the knowledge about all the different specialties that make the world go round. And I think that that's something not everybody realizes. And I didn't really realize the extent of it until I was here. And it's heartening to find out. And I've met a lot of different amazing people in this process. So, thank you.
Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. As this elected body, this is our last time to be sitting here together, sort of our last supper, if you will. And what an honor to sit here and serve you, something that I have never taken for granted. The real reason Lakewood is a great place is because of the caring and loving people that call Lakewood their home. Your kind spirit has inspired me to bigger and higher levels, and I want to be there for you even more. Our work isn't done. There is still more to do together. I want to thank Council for the pleasure to serve with you. We've had our differences, but ultimately the city is greater than any one body. Kudos to the hardworking staff. of Lakewood. You make us all look good. It isn't easy to be in municipal government. There are many conflicting needs. And as chairman of the legislative committee, I want to give kudos to the members on that committee. You spent many hours, you did good work, and I'm really proud of you. Again, I look forward to seeing and working with you in the future and work towards healing. This is not a goodbye, however. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Abel?
Thank you, Ramey. Just we're having our monthly ward meeting Saturday, 9:30 a.m. at Holy Shepherd Church, 920 Kipling Street. We'll talk about anything the folks there want us to talk about, as well as upcoming items that council will be discussing. So bring us your concerns and your kudos. Thank you.
Councilor Vincent?
Yes, we will be having a Ward 2 meeting on the second Wednesday at 1480 Teller, and Scott will be in attendance. And so will the new, I told you would be. And the new person will be also whoever I serve with. And one thing I want to make sure that I do is, because I know it would embarrass him, so I'm not going to thank Scott for his years of service, and I'm not going to thank Scott for all the help and assistance that he's given me over the years, and I'm not going to thank him for all the support he's given me, and I'm not going to wish him well. So I just want to let you know what I'm not going to tell Scott tonight.
Are we not going to let him speak too? Well said. Who do I got? Councilor Gutwein.
Thanks. I am going to. Thanks, Scott. So just, I'll be really quick, but I just wanted to thank Councilor Coop for his level-headed and voice of reason and experience, and I'm really going to miss having you on council. And whenever I discuss an issue with Scott, he always brings me back to the question of how will your decision impact the people in their lives in Lakewood? And so I will always keep that pearl of wisdom, and I'm sure I'll be calling you and asking you and bugging you for advice even when you're gone. And then Shakti, I'm so sad that you're leaving, and I cried earlier, but I won't do that now. But I wish you the best of luck, and I know we're going to see great things from you in the future. And on a lighter note, I don't know who will be late to a council meeting because they have a flat bike tire. So I've learned a lot from you and loved working and talking about sustainability. And you're really going to be missed. So thank you for your service.
Councilor Wickman. Councilor Coop.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for those kind words. I appreciate those very much. This is going to be very hard for me. This is something that I've never done before. But as somebody said earlier during public comment, I have to speak my piece. I've had probably the most unpleasant experience that I've probably ever had late last week. And I just want to check. Can everybody hear me? Okay. Can everybody see me? Good. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to read this. I ask that because I'm not going to hide behind a so-called newspaper or be on a radio broadcast. But I was unfortunate to listen to a radio show by Pete Roybal and Ramey Johnson that they were on in the recent past. It was very upsetting and brought Lakewood to a new low, in my opinion. Some of the conversation was about Mayor Adam Paul, and some of the language used was appalling, demeaning, and slanderous. I'm sorry, Mayor, that you're going to have to hear these again. I don't enjoy doing this. Here are some of the words used to describe Mayor Paul. Sleazeball, in the pocket of developers, pig, crook, evil, sold out his community, sleazeball again, slimy, sleazy politician, and sleaze again, and he needs to grow up. Here are words that were used to describe anyone that has similar values as Mayor Paul. On council or as citizens, all crooks, cronies. Everyone is a crook. We don't care. We are not good, decent, honorable, God-fearing Americans. Mayor Paul this year has made children a goal to focus on. Ramey Johnson thought that it was important enough to chime in. He doesn't even have any children. How is that anybody's business? If someone has chosen to not start a family, it is nobody's business. The radio person went on to describe Lakewood becoming a dump, a suburban dump, and an urban ghetto. There was also a lot of talk about campaign contributions on that radio show. There's been a lot of talk tonight about that. Pete Roybal is talking about any campaign contribution subject is the height of hypocrisy. Let's revisit the election of 2011. Dave Wickman contributed over $20,000 to Pete Roybal's election. This just wasn't a few $1,000s by someone that does business in Lakewood, lives in Lakewood, or is just interested in Lakewood. This is about a sitting council person trying to buy a seat for another council person. The end of the line, the buck stops here, decision maker. And this question is how much influence does money buy? Anyone can check the records and judge for yourself on how much influence money can buy. This isn't the first time Dave Wickman has offered money to a campaign. He offered to me the first time around. It reminds me of a question or a little proverb. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. It's about ethics. I'm not even going to go into the other part of the radio broadcast that held misrepresentations, half-truths, and lies. During that radio broadcast. I feel ashamed that up until a couple months ago, I was from the same party as some of these people. That's not the party that's not the party that good people in that party represent. Those are values not represented by that party. Thank you for the time, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Coop. I will adjourn the meeting at 8:33 p.m. And we'll now go into now call to order the Lakewood Reinvestment Authority special meeting. Lakewood, Colorado, October 30th, 2017 at 8:33 p.m. Will the clerk please call the order?
Paul?
Here.
Coop?
Here.
Wickman? Here. Gutwein?
Here.
Franks? Harrison? Here. Roybal?
Here.
Vincent? Here. Abel?
Here.
Johnson? Shakti?
Here.
You have a quorum.
All right. I'll now open public comment on the Lakewood Reinvestment Authority. Nobody's signed up to speak. I'll close public comment. And I'll now ask the clerk to read in item 6.
Item 6 is approval of the minutes of the Lakewood Reinvestment Authority Board meeting of July 10th, 2017.
Motion.
Take a motion.
Chairman Paul, I move for the approval of the Lakewood Reinvestment Authority minutes, of which are included in the consent agenda, items included into the record by the city clerk.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comment on the consent agenda? Seeing none, I'll close public comment and cast your votes, please. Passes 10 ayes, 0 nays. And will the clerk please read item 7 into the record?
Item 7, resolution, public hearing on Lakewood Reinvestment Authority, Resolution 2017-3, authorizing a revised budget for the year 2017 for the Lakewood Reinvestment Authority, and further adopting the annual budget for the Lakewood Reinvestment Authority for the fiscal year beginning on the first day of January 2018 and ending on December 31st, 2018, estimating the amount of money to be derived from tax increment financing and setting forth the appropriations for each fund.
I'll now open the public comment on item 7. Nobody's signed up to speak. Seeing none, I'll close public comment and ask for a motion.
Chairman Paul, I move for the adoption of Resolution LRA 2017-3.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion or comments? Seeing none, please cast your votes. Passes 10 ayes, 0 nays. Thank you, Ms. Nealon. All right. Are there is there any general business? Okay. Any comments? I'll just have one comment, and that has to do, it's a little bit outside of this realm, but a reminder that Planning Commission is having a series of meetings relating to growth and the issues that came from the 3 open houses in September, which unfortunately at their first meeting they had 0 participants. So with all the issues that we're facing, I really encourage the community to come out and take part. November 8th, it's going to be traffic. November 15th will be mixed use recommendations. November 29th, building design recommendations. December 13th, site design recommendations. And then January will be parking and housing. So this is a great opportunity for folks to get involved and participate. We really need you to do that. Yes, this schedule should have actually gone out to council today. All right. So that's all I have with that. I will close the meeting at 8:37 p.m.